Since the dawn of time, humanity has feared the shadows, invisible forces, dark thoughts, energies that seem to control the mind and destiny. But what if all of that could be dissolved by a single power? What if within you there existed a force so pure, so radiant, that no witchcraft, curse, or negative energy could ever touch you? In these pages, Joseph Murphy reveals a knowledge that religion only hinted at, the mental and spiritual power that nullifies all darkness. Here there is no superstition, only spiritual law. The mind united with the divine becomes an impenetrable shield, a flame that consumes all evil and transforms fear into mastery. Prepare to uncover the secrets long kept hidden, how to protect your energy, free your mind from unseen influences, and awaken the divine presence within you, a presence no shadow can withstand. This is not a text of fear, it is a text of power, and that power is within you. Welcome to the power that nullifies all witchcraft. The world is full of tales about curses, spells, and dark forces lurking in the shadows. From generation to generation, stories are passed down about dangerous words, secret rituals, and people cursed for an action, a word, or even simple envy. But I want you to pause and observe without fear what truly happens in the deepest corners of the human mind. Everything you call a curse or a spell is nothing more than a negative suggestion accepted by the subconscious. Here lies both the root and the solution to all evils that appear supernatural. Cultural beliefs, the phrases we hear as children, the fears whispered within families, the warnings transmitted in secret, all of these plant in the fertile soil of the subconscious mind patterns of expectation. What does this mean? It means that what the community fears, what the family anticipates, what you accept even partially, over time becomes a lived reality. Thus, a curse does not fall from the sky nor adhere magically. It germinates when the subconscious receives it, waters it, and turns it into a personal law. The Bible, a book of profound psychological wisdom, affirms, "As the sparrow finds its home and the swallow its nest, so a curse will never come without cause." Proverbs 26:2. This means that no negative word, no foreign ritual, no external decree can operate in your life if you, consciously or unconsciously, do not open the door to it through your mind. No one can be cursed without their mental consent, even if that consent was given out of fear, habit, or ignorance. This is the revolutionary concept I want you to embrace from now on. True power does not lie in the mouth of a sorcerer, nor in a symbol, nor in a ritual. It lies within you. The subconscious, like fertile soil, does not distinguish between truth and falsehood, reality or superstition. It simply produces whatever is sown with emotion and faith. Allow me to share some testimonies that confirm this universal law before we go further. Marta, a young woman terrified by a supposed curse from a neighbor, spent years trapped in illness and failure until she realized that the real spell was the fear repeated in her own thoughts. When she learned to withdraw her consent, her life changed radically. Carlos, a businessman besieged by the envy of colleagues, protected himself with rituals until he discovered that his misdirected faith was the only thing feeding his anxiety. When he aligned his mind with the truth of his own worth, all shadows dissipated. This book invites you on a journey of self-liberation, to dismantle old myths, to understand the mental law operating behind every collective belief, and to claim your natural right to protection, peace, and abundance. Here you will find no superstition, but applied spiritual science. No rigid dogmas, but principles proven through experience and reason. Always remember, only you from within hold the key to freedom. What you accept in your mind, you plant. What you reject fades away. You will know the truth, and the unchanging, liberating truth will make you free. Learn how to break curses and mental spells, based on Joseph Murphy. We have noticed that over 80% of visitors to our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. The Anatomy of a Curse, How It Really Works. Listen to these words and allow them to penetrate to the very marrow of your being. There is no negative power in the universe that can harm you without your mental consent. Every curse, spell, poisonous word, or malicious decree is nothing more than a seed, a negative suggestion that only germinates when it finds fertile soil in your subconscious. And that soil, dear reader, is often prepared without your notice through habits, fears, and inherited beliefs. Today, we will strip away, layer by layer, the structure of a curse until you can see, without shadow or fear, that all its supposed power resides in your own internal acceptance. Let me ask you, have you ever felt that a string of misfortunes, illnesses, or losses seemed to follow you after receiving a threat, a harsh word, or even a simple remark that someone wished you harm? Why do so many people tremble at the rumor of a witch, the evil eye, or a spell cast in the shadows? The answer, like all profound truths, is simple, but no less astonishing, because they have mentally accepted the suggestion. They allowed someone else's seed to enter the locked chamber of their subconscious mind. Fear, credulity, and ignorance act as water, fertilizer, and sunlight, allowing that seed to grow and bear fruit. A bitter fruit, yes, but created by the very tree of their own beliefs. We will dissect with surgical precision each phase of this dynamic so that you understand how the law of the mind really operates in this domain, and so you can take the helm of your destiny once again. 1. External negative suggestion. Every curse begins with a suggestion. It can come from outside, an angry person, a supposed sorcerer, a superstitious relative, or even from within, like a self-critical thought you repeat insistently. In many cultures, the word curse is wrapped in an aura of mystery, accompanied by rituals, symbols, and theatrical gestures. But if you strip away the outer garments and focus on the essence, you will see that the mechanism is identical to that of a simple destructive criticism, only amplified by fear and ignorance. 2. Acceptance through fear or cultural belief. The second phase is the most crucial. Not every seed germinates, only those that fall on fertile ground do. Here, the fertile soil is your belief, your fear, your cultural predisposition. A small child, raised among adults who firmly believe in witchcraft and curses, learns from birth to fear a word, a glance, or a gesture. That fear implants a vulnerability in their subconscious, a crack through which the negative suggestion can slip. Fear is the key. "The thing I feared has come upon me," says the book of Job 3:25, and this phrase sums up the entire psychodynamics of the curse. Fear is a prayer, a subconscious decree that gives permission for the suggestion to operate. 3. Imprinting on the subconscious. Here occurs the true act of magic, not the sorcerer's but your own mind's. The subconscious does not distinguish reality from imagination. It does not reason, argue, or filter. It simply accepts what the conscious mind delivers, especially if it is charged with intense emotion. If someone tells you that you are cursed and you believe it, or worse, if you fear it could be true, your subconscious records it as fact. At that moment, the idea begins to act from within as an invisible command that your mind and body will seek to fulfill. Remember this: the subconscious is like a blind gardener who plants and cultivates whatever it receives without asking whether it is a rose or a thorn. It sows what it is given, and life returns what you have cultivated, whether perfume or poison. This is also how blessings work. A positive word believed firmly produces fruits of health, prosperity, and joy. 4. Physical manifestation. The invisible becomes visible. The ideas nurtured in the subconscious always seek to manifest in the outer life, whether in the body, in business, or in relationships. How many people have fallen ill after hearing of a supposed curse? How many have lost money, friendships, or inner peace after accepting that someone wished them harm? Modern medicine calls this the nocebo effect, the dark twin of the placebo. Just as positive faith can heal, negative faith can sicken and destroy. Allow me to illustrate this with a documented real case, also observed in consultations around the world. A man in Haiti, deeply convinced that a voodoo sorcerer had condemned him to death, began to deteriorate physically and mentally. No one could convince him otherwise. His pulse weakened, his energy faded, his gaze dimmed. He died on the exact date predicted by the sorcerer. Was it the spell or the fear? Physical autopsy revealed a healthy body, but the mental autopsy, which I invite you to perform on yourself, reveals the truth. Fear had planted a lethal command in the man's subconscious. The secret is in plain sight, though for many it remains hidden. What you accept in your subconscious becomes law for you. The sorcerer's word has no inherent power. It is the faith or fear of the cursed person that brings about the effect, for better or worse. When you change your internal acceptance, the power of all that negative influence dissolves like mist in the morning sun. How to distinguish reality from illusion? The subconscious mind, I repeat, does not separate reality from imagination. If you visualize with enough intensity a scenario of disease, ruin, or failure, the subconscious will work tirelessly to manifest that image. Likewise, if you visualize health, abundance, and blessing, your subconscious will obey that command. This is why Scripture insists, as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Everything you fear, everything you believe, everything you imagine with intensity, the subconscious will strive to manifest, confirming your assumptions. Do you now see the deception? External powers do not exist. No demon, witch, or sorcerer can penetrate your mind without your permission. The only power is your inner consent. You are the one who opens or closes the door. Medicine confirms it, nocebo and self-hypnosis. You may think, but Dr. Murphy, I've seen real cases. Entire families ruined by a curse. Whole towns terrified by the evil eye. I do not deny the facts. I explain the law that governs them. The nocebo effect is now recognized by science. Just as a doctor can give a sugar pill and the patient improves because they believe in it, words, gestures, or a grim diagnosis can suggest a negative expectation, and the body will respond by falling ill, weakening, self-destructing. Every curse is a nocebo cloaked in superstition. Human consciousness is constantly self-generating. What you repeat to yourself, what you are told and accept, what you fear and do not examine, all of it is imprinted deep within, where it operates with mathematical precision. Practical exercise, mental autopsy. Do it now as you listen to my voice. Take a moment of silence. Close your eyes if you prefer. Ask yourself which negative phrases you have accepted from others throughout your life. What judgments, threats, mockery, diagnoses, words that still echo in your memory. Pay special attention to those that caused fear, anxiety, or helplessness. Write them down or recite them in your mind without judging them yet. Then examine each one as a doctor examines a wound. Ask yourself who offered that suggestion. Did I accept it because I believed everything? Because I was afraid? Because everyone around me also believed it? Have I seen manifestations of that idea in my life? Acknowledge, without guilt or anguish, that none of those suggestions ever had power on their own. The power came from your unconscious acceptance. Now say aloud with firmness, I revoke all power I have given, consciously or unconsciously, to negative words. My mind is free. I accept only ideas of blessing, health, and well-being. Make this exercise your daily ritual until your mind becomes a fortress against all harmful influence. Remember always, no one can curse you without your mental permission. Every curse is a lie disguised as mystery. The power is and always has been within you. Decide today which seeds you plant in the garden of your mind. Your life is the harvest. Chapter 2. Invisible Consent. Why some people are vulnerable. Pause for a moment and observe your surroundings. You will see that some people seem to navigate life like calm ships, immune to the storm of rumors, threats, or negative words, while others, at the slightest breeze of an unfavorable comment, founder in the sea of fear. Why does this happen? Why? If the mental law is the same for everyone, why are some more vulnerable to the influence of curses, hurtful words, or ominous prophecies? Today, we will decipher this enigma, stripping it of all mystery until you understand the deep root of human susceptibility. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is ignorance of the law. Many mistakenly believe that being vulnerable to negative suggestions is a sign of weak character or bad luck. But it is not. Mental vulnerability is neither a personal flaw nor an inevitable fate. Above all, it is ignorance of the law that governs the mind. It is the failure to realize that all consent to negative influences occurs first in the hidden workshop of the subconscious. Think of the mind as an invisible fortress. No one can breach its walls without the gatekeeper, your attention and your belief, opening the door. But if from childhood you are taught to fear, to yield, to suspect the future or the intentions of others, your internal vigilance gradually weakens. The gatekeeper grows drowsy, and anyone can enter. Childhood programming, the seed of vulnerability. From the earliest days of life, a child's mind is like fresh clay, ready to be molded. Everything the child hears, sees, and feels in their family environment becomes subconscious foundation. If they grow up surrounded by adults who firmly believe in curses, the evil eye, or the harmful power of words or glances, that belief becomes embedded in their internal reference system as an unquestionable fact. Remember, the child's mind does not filter, judge, or debate. It simply accepts as truth everything it receives, especially if it comes from figures of authority, parents, grandparents, teachers. A fearful mother who repeats, "In this family we all suffer the same," is not just sharing a story, she is planting a self-fulfilling prophecy in her children's minds. Unresolved trauma and low self-esteem. Added to this is the invisible weight of unresolved trauma. A child who has experienced abandonment, abuse, or rejection may develop fragile self-esteem, an inner voice whispering, "I am unworthy, I deserve the bad, something is wrong with me." These phrases, even when unspoken, are decrees that the subconscious obeys without hesitation. Thus, every negative word, every gesture of disdain or veiled threat, finds fertile ground to germinate and grow. Low self-esteem is the ideal soil where seeds of external curses flourish. Those who do not recognize their value, who have been trained in self-blame and doubt, live in a state of passive openness to all external flows. It is like a castle, with its gates always wide open. Cultural environment, the invisible atmosphere that shapes faith. Add to this the cultural environment. In many communities, belief in hidden forces, the transmission of family curses, or the need for protective rituals is so entrenched that it seems natural, not learned. But the human mind is extraordinarily plastic. What one generation accepts as reality, the next receives as an invisible inheritance. Thus, entire families repeat the same pattern of fear and submission to negative words, believing themselves under an external yoke, when in reality they carry an unconscious contract signed with their own beliefs. Unconscious contracts with narratives. This is a key revelation. No one is condemned to repeat the past unless they silently accept it. Many live under what I call unconscious contracts with narrative. They have unknowingly signed a mental agreement with misfortune, illness, or ruin, simply because they learned it from those who preceded them. These contracts are not mystical pacts nor real curses. They are psychological agreements reinforced by repetition, example, and fear. If in your family they always say, "We never prosper, women in this house always suffer," you are hearing the voice of a negative contract. It is not imposed destiny. It is a repeated suggestion turned into law for the subconscious. Central story: the woman and the family curse. Let me tell you about a woman who consulted me, convinced she was under a family curse. For 3 generations, the women in her lineage had suffered episodes of deep sadness, isolation, and difficulty maintaining stable relationships. Her grandmother called it the curse of sad women, her mother the black shadow, and she referred to it as my cross. During our sessions, we explored her memories, the phrases repeated at home, the gestures of resignation at every family gathering. Soon, the truth emerged. It was not a spiritual evil or external force, but the silent transmission of untreated depression, inherited through emotional modeling. Each daughter learned, without words, to resign herself, to endure in pain, to fear happiness. The diagnosis was revelatory for her. "It is not a curse, Dr. Murphy. It is a learned family script, never questioned." That day, the woman decided to break the unconscious contract. She learned to see herself with new eyes, to affirm her right to joy, and gradually, like a seed watered with love, peace began to flourish in her life. Family patterns, psychological modeling, not hidden powers. Thus, I want you to understand that many patterns labeled as curses are nothing more than repeated psychological models. Just as you inherit a recipe, an accent, or a tradition, you also inherit a way of seeing life, expecting misfortune and fearing the future. But all mental inheritance can be examined, renewed, and overcome. The law of the mind does not recognize fatalism. You can always choose. Practical exercise: inventory of consents. Now it is your turn to open your inner eyes and review which unconscious contracts you have signed in your life. I call this the inventory of consents. Find a quiet moment, close your eyes. Allow all the negative phrases, shadowy ideas, family threats, or pessimistic beliefs you have heard, and above all, accepted as your own, to surface in your memory. Ask yourself, where did I learn that I should fear ideas about my destiny, my value, my health, my prosperity? When did I feel compelled to resign myself to suffering, failure, or loneliness? Make a mental or written list of each consent given, consciously or unconsciously, to negative forces. Then take a deep breath and repeat with me, slowly and firmly. I withdraw all consent, conscious or unconscious, given to negative forces. Now I choose my freedom and my divine right to joy, health, and prosperity. Make this affirmation a daily ritual. Every time an old belief, an inherited voice, or a collective fear arises, remember, you can cancel the contract and sign a new one, written in the ink of truth and knowledge. Remember always, you are not vulnerable by fate or punishment. You are only vulnerable to what you do not know. Knowledge of the mental law is your shield. When you recognize your right to choose, you break the invisible chains of generations. Freedom begins where fear ends. This concludes the chapter. Make the decision now. Examine your contracts. Cancel the negative. Affirm your right to the best. You are free, for your mind, and only your mind, holds the key to every door. Chapter 3. The power of God within you, your natural spiritual immunity. Pause and listen if you have ever felt the weight of fear in the presence of forces you do not understand. If you have believed that there is a power in the world capable of bending your life, allow me to reveal today the greatest truth that can be spoken under the sun. Within you dwells a divine presence, infinitely more powerful than any negative force, visible or invisible. You do not need to seek it in distant temples, nor invoke it as one would call for help from a faraway power. It is within you right now, like the breath that gives you life and the light that illuminates your understanding. I want you to imprint in your mind, and even deeper in your subconscious, this simple and forceful biblical declaration. Greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. 1 John 4:4. Repeat it. Hear it within. Let it resonate like a bell that disperses the fog of fear. This phrase is not a conditional promise, nor a symbolic comfort. It is the universal law of spiritual protection. When you recognize and accept that infinite intelligence dwells in you, every notion of vulnerability dissolves. Automatic immunity through inner recognition. Most people, trapped in the logic of the senses, believe that danger comes from outside and that defense must also come from outside. But the most powerful shield is not material. It is the living awareness of your unity with the divine source. Recognizing that God lives and operates within you ignites a force field that no negative suggestion can penetrate. You do not have to fight darkness, simply turn on the light. Just as a strong immune system repels invisible germs, your spiritual immunity, your awareness of the divine presence, makes you impervious to negative suggestions, external threats, and any attempt at mental domination by others. This immunity is not the privilege of saints or mystics. It is the natural inheritance of every human being who understands the law of the Spirit. God is not out there. He is in you, operating as the infinite intelligence of your subconscious. For centuries, people were taught to look for God outside themselves, in the heavens, in images, in distant rituals. But the true revelation, repeated by sages of all eras, is that the divine presence is within your own being, acting as the infinite intelligence of your subconscious. It is not a distant judge nor a capricious power, but the creative energy that pulses in every cell, every thought, every heartbeat. When you pray, affirm, or visualize, you are not speaking to an external God. You are mobilizing the infinite forces of your deep mind, where the eternal presence resides. This understanding is the rock upon which all immunity is built. No one can touch you, no one can harm you, unless you ignore this truth and hand your faith over to fear. The false duality of good and evil. Many live confused by duality. They believe that two powers, good and evil, wage eternal battle for control of human destiny. But this is an illusion born of ignorance. There is only one power, one creative, substantial energy that, when used wisely, manifests blessings. When misused through ignorance, can produce undesirable results. Just as electricity can light a city or start a fire, the force of life can create health or illness, wealth or poverty, peace or conflict, depending on how you use it. There is no God of evil warring against the God of good. There is only one God, one law, one presence, and that presence is in you. True story, the pastor and the shadow of doubt. Let me illustrate this with a true story that encapsulates the power of this teaching. A pastor, a man of genuine faith, used to affirm each morning, "The divine presence within me protects me from all evil. I am surrounded by the light of God. No negative force can penetrate this circle of love." He lived in peace, immune to the collective fears of his community, who feared witchcraft and curses. But one day, confronted with a series of rumors, he began to doubt. He wondered, what if there is truly something dark that can harm me? In that moment, his peace cracked. Anxiety grew, and he soon noticed small misfortunes, health problems, and conflicts without cause. Fear had opened a crack in his consciousness. When he came to me, I reminded him of the immutable law, "Greater is he who is in you." I asked him to resume his affirmation, not as an empty ritual, but with full awareness of its meaning. Within days, his mood lifted, his health improved, and the chain of misfortunes was broken. "It was never God who left," he confessed later. "It was I who, for a moment, forgot that he was with me." Total immunity practice, 15-minute session. Now I want you to practice what I call the total immunity treatment. Find a quiet place, sit comfortably, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. For 15 minutes, affirm slowly and deliberately, with the greatest possible conviction. The divine presence fills my entire being. I am surrounded by the light of God, impenetrable to all evil. No external force can touch or influence me, for within me dwells the only power. I am the temple of infinite intelligence. I am one with the force that created the universe. Nothing can harm me. I am safe. I am at peace. I am protected. Visualize this light filling every cell of your body, surrounding you with a field of living, vibrant, unbreakable energy. Feel how all negative influence rebounds powerless against the shield of your awakened consciousness. Make this practice a daily habit, especially at the beginning and end of each day. Repeat mentally whenever a worry or fear arises. Greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. Remember always, your spiritual immunity does not depend on amulets, external rituals, or the words of others. It arises from the recognition of your unity with divine power. You are invulnerable when you know who you are, when you recognize God's presence within you. No negative force, visible or invisible, can cross the threshold of your awakened consciousness. End this chapter with the certainty that you are now and always the dwelling place of infinite intelligence. Your immunity is automatic and perpetual as long as you sustain this truth in your mind and heart. Affirm it, visualize it, live from the presence, and you will experience peace, protection, and victory at all times. Chapter 4, Numbers 11 and 23. No spell can touch you. Allow these words to resonate in your mind and penetrate to the deepest part of your being. There is no divination against Jacob, nor any soothsaying against Israel. Numbers 11:23. The biblical account is clear and definitive. Balaam, the sorcerer hired to curse the people of Israel, finds himself powerless. His spells, his rituals, his words of malicious intent bounce back without effect. Why? Because there is a higher law, a universal principle that remains immutable through the ages. No negative suggestion can take root in one who lives in awareness of unity with infinite good. Read the passage carefully. Balaam tries everything, but every time he attempts to pronounce a curse, only blessings come from his mouth. The evil he is asked to send becomes good, not because Balaam changed his mind, nor because his powers were extinguished, but because true protection is a state of consciousness, not an external ritual. Israel in this context represents the man or woman who lives conscious of their spiritual identity, aligned with the only real power, the divine presence within. The universal principle of spiritual immunity. Here is the secret. No spell, no malicious word, no witchcraft ritual has inherent power. All power resides in the internal acceptance of the one who receives it. When your consciousness is tuned to infinite good, when you recognize that God lives and operates within you, all negative influence dissolves before it touches you, like an arrow that breaks in the air before reaching its target. This principle repeats itself again and again throughout Scripture. Psalm 91 declares with authority, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. No evil shall befall you, nor shall plague come near your dwelling. For he will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. Isaiah 54:17 expresses the same certainty. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will condemn every tongue that rises against you in judgment. These are not promises for a select few. They are universal mental and spiritual laws. When your consciousness rises above fear and superstition, you live in an atmosphere where no negative suggestion can take root. The true meaning of Israel. In the language of the mind, Israel is not merely an ancient people. It represents the individual awakened to the consciousness of their divine identity. It is the man or woman who has silently said in their heart, "I am one with the presence that created me, and nothing external can harm me." Just as iron cannot be penetrated by water, a mind anchored in good cannot be touched by negative suggestion. This state of consciousness is your true protection. It does not depend on talismans, amulets, medals, or external rituals. Every object is only a temporary reminder. The true armor is the firm, unwavering conviction that infinite good surrounds you, protects you, and dwells within you. When you know this, no spell prospers, no evil touches you. Real-life story: the man who let go of amulets. Let me share a story I have witnessed repeatedly. A man, fearful of envy and the ill will of others, collected amulets, medals, bracelets, stones, and charms, each promising protection. He lived anxiously, always worried about losing any protective object. If a medal fell, panic would seize him. His life was governed by fear, not faith. One day, weary of living enslaved to objects, he came to me for guidance. I explained that no external amulet could replace the security that arises from awakened consciousness. I asked him to read and meditate daily on Numbers 11 and 23, and with each repetition, visualize an invulnerable, unbreakable inner light. Gradually, he began to release his amulets. At first, he felt fear, but the constant practice of the biblical affirmation created a new certainty in his mind. He discovered that his faith was the only amulet necessary. Negative circumstances ceased, and his life filled with peace. "I am no longer afraid," he told me, "because I know who I am, and I know that nothing can harm me without my permission." Dismantling dependence on external rituals. You do not need to carry stones, light candles, hang medals, or recite repetitive prayers as magical formulas. All of these have value only insofar as they remind you of your unity with God. But the day you understand that your protection is a state of consciousness, you can release all external supports and walk through life free, serene, and confident. True protection is internal, invisible, permanent. It is cultivated through thought, prayer, meditation, and the conscious repetition of truth. Just as the body strengthens its immunity through food and exercise, the mind strengthens its spiritual immunity through daily practice of inner recognition. Exercise, memorization and meditation on Numbers 11 and 23. I invite you to make Numbers 11 and 23 your mental shield for the next 21 days. Repeat this affirmation each morning and night. There is no divination against Jacob, nor any soothsaying against Israel. Say it slowly and with full attention. Close your eyes and visualize each word penetrating your subconscious like a seed of certainty. If fear, worry, or alarming news arises, return to this affirmation. Let it ingrain itself deeply in your mind until your conviction is as firm as a rock. Meditate on its meaning. Jacob represents you when you recognize your inner value. Israel represents you when you live in conscious unity with the divine source. Nothing external can touch you except what you yourself accept. Always remember, no spell, curse, or negative word can prosper against a mind aligned with infinite good. True protection is the knowledge of who you are and who dwells within you. Live from this consciousness, and you will experience peace that surpasses all understanding. Release your fears, let go of talismans, and claim your inalienable right to divine protection. This is the law. Practice it, make it yours, and you will see miracles unfold in your life. Chapter 5. The Evil Eye and Other Collective Suggestions. Perhaps at some point you have heard stories about the evil eye, destructive envy, or heavy glances that supposedly can ruin crops, sicken children, or break prosperous businesses. Across every continent under different names, there exists the belief that certain people, consciously or unconsciously, emit a negative power that affects others. In some cultures, even a compliment without a ritual gesture can cause concern, while in others, the very idea of the evil eye is unknown and therefore harmless. Why is this so? Because no collective suggestion can affect you without your mental acceptance. Acceptance, the only channel of action. At this point, I want you to observe a pattern. The evil eye and all its variants only work if the person targeted accepts the belief framework. The mind is like a camera. It records what it focuses on. If you grow up in an environment where it is repeated that a glance can cause illness, that someone else's gaze can harm, or that prosperity invites misfortune through the eyes of others, your subconscious is programmed to expect that possibility. Thus, the magic of the evil eye does not reside in the eye that looks, but in the mind that fears and accepts. Anthropologists have observed that in cultures where belief in the evil eye is omnipresent, people develop protective rituals, amulets, and phrases to neutralize danger. Children, animals, or projects thrive only insofar as they do not attract attention. The community shapes expectations so strongly that a simple glance can trigger physical symptoms, from fever to wilting plants. Yet in cultures where such beliefs do not exist, the same circumstances pass unnoticed, and the supposed power of the gaze vanishes like mist before the sun. This reveals a crucial fact. Collective suggestions act like morphogenetic fields of belief, large invisible fields of thought in which shared expectation reinforces individual experience. When an entire group expects harm, they produce it collectively as a self-fulfilling prophecy. But all of this is mental law. What you accept, you harvest. The truth behind others' thoughts. People often believe that the negative thoughts of others can penetrate their defenses and cause harm. This is one of the most persistent illusions. Let me be clear. No thought from another person can touch you if you do not open the door with your attention and belief. Others' thoughts are like radio waves. They only affect you if your receiver, your mind, is tuned to that frequency. Real-life example. A merchant came to me frustrated. He had suffered several setbacks in his business and was convinced that the envy of his competitors was the cause of his ruin. He protected himself with amulets, avoided talking about his successes, and even distrusted his own employees. His life became a constant vigilance against an invisible enemy. During our conversations, he examined his own inner dialogue. Together, we discovered that what he called external envy was really the projection of his own insecurity, fear of failure, and doubt about his right to prosper. Once he understood this, he stopped seeking the cause outside himself and began working to strengthen his confidence and affirm his well-being. Over time, his businesses improved, and the shadow of envy disappeared. Not because his competitors stopped feeling it, but because he no longer accepted it as a real power over his life. Morphogenetic fields, the power of collective belief. Do not underestimate the power of collective mental fields. Just as a group of people can create an atmosphere of faith, hope, and prosperity, collective ignorance can create environments of fear, limitation, and expectation of harm. But the law is individual. You can live within a culture of superstition and remain unharmed if you affirm the truth within yourself. No one can think for you. No one can create in your experience what you do not accept. Practical exercise. The shield of divine indifference. Today, I want to give you a powerful tool to fortify your mind against collective suggestions. Call this exercise the shield of divine indifference. Close your eyes. Visualize your body surrounded by a soft, luminous sphere that vibrates with a high frequency of peace and confidence. Imagine that any negative thought, any envious or malicious glance, reaches this sphere and bounces back without touching you. Observe how these waves simply return to the sender without penetrating your field of protection. While performing this visualization, repeat to yourself, "Nothing external can disturb my peace. I am protected by the light of infinite good. Others' thoughts do not resonate with my frequency. They bounce back and dissolve into nothingness. I only accept good, joy, and prosperity." Practice this exercise whenever you perceive hostility, envy, or collective anxiety around you. Remember, your attention is the switch. Only what you believe and focus on can have an effect in your life. Collective suggestions only govern those who accept their law. The evil eye, destructive envy, negative glances, these are mental phenomena, not mysterious powers. Choose which thoughts you accept, which beliefs you cultivate, which frequency you emit. Keep your mind elevated, tuned to truth and good, and you will discover that you are invulnerable to all external flow. Make divine indifference your permanent shield, and live each day with the certainty that nothing and no one can divert you from the path of success, health, and peace. Accept your own consent. The power is, and always will be, within you. Chapter 6. Generational Curses Breaking Ancestral Chains. In many families, the echo of a troubling phrase resounds, "We are cursed." Whether spoken jokingly, whispered, or solemnly given as an explanation for repeated misfortunes, the idea of a generational curse has deeply permeated the collective imagination. But what does this expression really mean? Is it an eternal decree dictated by an external power, or a silent mental law transmitted from parents to children? Today, in the light of spiritual and scientific knowledge, we will uncover the true meaning of these ancestral chains, and most importantly, the method to break them once and for all. The biblical text of Exodus 25 has been a source of fear and confusion for centuries. "I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation." Many interpret this as a divine punishment falling upon descendants for the mistakes of their ancestors. But if you observe carefully through the lens of mental law, you will see that this passage does not speak of vengeance. It is an exact description of how psychological patterns are inherited and perpetuated across generations. Generational curses, the transmission of beliefs and traumas. Every family is a garden where beliefs, attitudes, emotions, and expectations are sown and cultivated. When a generation faces unresolved traumas, economic limitations, conflictive relationships, or chronic fears, they often unconsciously transmit these same patterns to their children and grandchildren. Thus, what is called a curse is in reality the sum of three main mechanisms: transmitted limiting beliefs. Phrases such as, "In this house no one prospers," "Happiness is not for us," or "Men in this family die young," become prophecies repeated and fulfilled by each generation, often unknowingly. The child, hearing these ideas from trusted elders, records them as immutable laws in the subconscious, unprocessed traumas. Family history is marked by painful events, abandonment, accidents, economic ruin, violent conflicts. If these traumas are not understood and healed, they leave emotional imprints that condition parenting, ways of loving, coping, and facing the world. The pain of grandparents becomes the chronic fear of grandchildren, learned economic and relational patterns. The ways a family handles money, resolves or avoids conflicts, chooses partners, and faces adversity are transmitted by imitation and modeling. A child who observes a father losing opportunities due to fear of change may repeat this pattern of self-sabotage for life, convinced of being cursed when in fact he is only hypnotized by the example received. Epigenetics, science confirms mental law. Modern science, especially epigenetics, has discovered that traumas experienced by one generation can modify gene expression in descendants. Emotional environment, beliefs, and mental habits literally turn certain genes on or off, predisposing children and grandchildren to repeat the same physical and psychological challenges. This is not punishment, but information transmitted through biology and the mind. Thus, the Bible accurately describes what science today confirms. The effects of wrongdoing, error, suffering, and ignorance can last for several generations until someone finally decides to break the chain. Real-life example: the Puerto Rican family and the cycle of accidents. Let me share the case of a Puerto Rican family convinced they carried a curse. 3 generations of men had suffered serious accidents. The grandfather lost a leg in a workplace accident. The father spent months in a coma after a crash. The grandson miraculously survived a motorcycle accident. All of them growing up heard the same warning: "In our blood, there is misfortune no one can avoid." When the grandson sought help, we investigated the family history together. Soon we discovered an invisible pattern. Each man lived with constant anxiety, fear of loss, impulsive driving, and a reckless attitude toward danger. It was not a supernatural curse, but the sum of chronic anxiety and risky habits learned and never questioned. When the family understood this, they changed their internal dialogue, adopted new safety habits, and over time, the cycle was broken. Positive inheritance, honoring the good in your lineage. Not everything inherited from ancestors is negative. Every lineage carries strengths, virtues, examples of resilience and love that can also be claimed and amplified. Breaking chains does not mean rejecting your family, but honoring their story and consciously choosing which legacy you wish to perpetuate. You are free to accept blessings and leave limitations behind. Practical exercise, Ancestral Liberation Decree. Today I invite you to practice the Ancestral Liberation Decree. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and visualize a chain connecting you to the negative patterns of your ancestors. Recognize with gratitude the good you have received, life, values, strength, and then mentally cut the links you no longer wish to carry. Say firmly and clearly, I thank and bless my ancestors for all the good they have given me. I acknowledge that every limiting belief, every emotion of suffering, every negative pattern no longer has power over me. I now declare that I am free. I only accept the legacy of love, health, and prosperity. Every negative chain is broken. A new story of blessing begins in me. Make this decree a regular practice. Whenever the shadow of an old belief arises, remember that the law of your mind is more powerful than any inherited story. Always remember, there are no generational curses in the sense of divine punishment. Only mental and emotional patterns repeat until someone chooses to change them. Freedom is an act of consciousness. Today, you have the power to honor your lineage while writing a new destiny. The chain breaks the moment you choose truth over fear. You are the strong link, the starting point of a new era for your family. Chapter 7. Witchcraft as Inverted Mental Projection. I want you to observe without fear and with a clear mind the psychological root of what humanity has called witchcraft, black magic, or sorcery. Throughout the centuries, countless stories have arisen about rituals, spells, and curses capable of altering another's life from a distance, as if an invisible, autonomous power could penetrate someone else's existence without permission. But when examined in the light of mental law, we discover a much less mysterious and paradoxically far more everyday phenomenon: inverted mental projection. Black magic is the negative use of the same mental principles. Everything labeled witchcraft, black magic, or spellcasting is simply the use of the same principles of visualization and mental decree that operate in prayer, positive affirmation, or meditation, only inverted toward the expectation of harm instead of good. The sorcerer or healer, when performing a ritual, is not invoking external forces beyond the human mind. Rather, they are focusing their thought, imagination, and emotion in a specific direction. If the target accepts the suggestion, if they fear it, if they expect harm, they become their own negative mental operator. It is that simple. The power of black magic resides in the mind of the receiver, not in the one who casts it. There is no autonomous demonic force hovering in space. What we call a curse is, in reality, an inner command that the victim gives themselves under the guise of fear and external suggestion. Just as a prayer or decree of faith can heal, a decree fueled by fear can produce harm. The fearful expectation creates the conditions for the damage. Let me emphasize this once more. No one can harm you mentally without your consent. Witchcraft only prospers where fear, credulity, and a hypnotized mind are present. The sorcerer issues the threat. The victim, by believing it, installs it in their subconscious. Then they begin to expect the damage, visualize it, and interpret every physical symptom or daily problem as confirmation. The subconscious, obedient to the dominant image, carries out the rest, manifesting the feared outcome as if it were a divine mandate. Remember Job's law, "What I feared has come upon me." A sorcerer may cast 1,000 spells, but none succeed if the inner mind does not accept them and turn them into orders. Testimonies from sorcerers and healers. The victim's belief is the only channel. It is not uncommon for honest sorcerers and healers to admit that their rituals only work when the person believes in them. I have heard confessions like this many times. If the client doubts, nothing happens. If they believe, everything occurs as expected. Here lies the key. Suggestion takes hold because the mind has opened the door. Once, a woman confessed to me that she had spent thousands of dollars on cleansing rituals to remove a curse. After each ritual, she experienced temporary relief, a calm lasting a few days. However, the symptoms returned with renewed force. Finally, after examining her case together, she discovered that the true source of her suffering was her own expectation. She had faith, not in her protection, but in the power of the sorcerer. Her fear was the real spell. The The relief only lasted as long as the positive suggestion from the ritual persisted. Then the old fear reclaimed its place, and the cycle repeated. Demonic entities, personifications of negative mental states. At this point, I want you to dismantle a deeply rooted belief. The idea of external demonic entities, autonomous beings that stalk and destroy at will. The human mind, in its need to explain evil, has personified its own negative internal states, guilt, fear, hatred, jealousy, as monstrous figures. But the real battle is internal. When you speak of demons, you are speaking of unrecognized and unhealed negative beliefs and emotions. When you unmask them, you see that they are nothing more than projections of your own fear, waiting to be acknowledged and transformed. True power, redirecting emotion and visualization. Just as the sorcerer uses intense emotion and visualization to create fear, you can, in the opposite direction, use the same energy to protect and bless yourself. All the fervor that fear awakens can be redirected toward faith, trust, and visualization of divine protection. Practical exercise, inverted reprogramming. Today, I invite you to practice the exercise of inverted reprogramming. Take a moment of calm. Close your eyes. Recall an occasion when you felt fear, believing that an external force could harm you. Notice the intensity of the emotion you generated at that moment. Now, direct all that emotion, all that power, toward an opposite image. Visualize a sphere of golden light surrounding your body, so intense and vibrant that no external suggestion can penetrate it. Affirm with the same conviction with which you once feared, all forces directed against me are transformed into blessings. My mind and body are protected by the divine presence. I only accept good. I am free. I am strong. I am invulnerable. Repeat this several times until you feel the vibration of security settle deep within your being. Practice this exercise whenever old fear arises, and gradually your subconscious will replace the image of vulnerability with one of inner power. Remember always, witchcraft in all its forms is nothing more than the distorted use of mental law. No one can influence you without your permission. Demons are emotions and beliefs, waiting to be redirected toward the light of consciousness. Use the same emotional energy that once fueled your fear to now fuel your faith in protection and good. In doing so, you will transform every threat into an opportunity for growth and every shadow into a manifestation of the light that already lives within you. Chapter 8. The Scientific Treatment of the Mind, Your Liberation Ritual. Stop for a moment and consider this. Every human tradition has, in one way or another, attempted to free the individual from negative influences. Throughout the centuries, rituals, prayers, and ceremonies have been devised to protect against evil. However, there is a radical difference between rituals based on fear and superstition and the scientific method of mental treatment I propose today. The first depends on external forces. The second relies on inner knowledge. One is blind, the other conscious. One perpetuates dependence, the other establishes freedom. Let us walk step by step through the true liberation ritual, grounded in universal laws of the mind and spirit. This method is the bridge between living faith and intelligent understanding. Remember, what you are about to practice is not superstition, but a mental procedure involving comprehension, mastery, and conviction. Step 1. Deep relaxation. All transformation begins with stillness. Find a quiet place, sit or lie comfortably, and bring your attention to your breathing. Each exhale is a command of relaxation sent to your body and mind. In this state of rest, the subconscious is receptive, fertile soil ready for sowing. Step 2. Recognize the problem without emotion. Face directly the situation you wish to transform. Name it without fear, drama, or attachment. I feel I have been a victim of a curse. I have lived under the shadow of others' envy. I carry family patterns of failure. By recognizing the problem, you strip it of mystery. You turn it into a mental phenomenon, not an external monster. Step 3. Deny power to the perceived curse. This is the crucial turn. Mentally affirm, no word, thought, or negative action has power over me. I revoke all consent given consciously or unconsciously to external influences. Only my inner acceptance creates my experience. I now withdraw that permission. Say it with conviction as one closes a door forever. Step 4. Affirm spiritual truth. Now plant the positive seed. Within me dwells the divine presence, the infinite good. Only the power of God in me and through me governs my life. I am impenetrable to all harm. I am free, I am protected, I am blessed. Let this truth fill every cell of your body and every corner of your mind. Step 5. Visualize the desired outcome. Imagine as vividly as possible the final scene of your liberation. See yourself healthy, joyful, at peace, surrounded by well-being and harmony. Feel freedom as if it has already come to pass. The subconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. Take the image as an order and begin to manifest it. Step 6. Give thanks in advance. And finally, give thanks. Thank you, Father, because this is already done. My freedom is secured. I give thanks for the manifestation of protection, health, and prosperity. I accept, receive, and celebrate it. Gratitude is the mark of true faith and the seal of the completed work. The scientific method versus superstitious ritual. Unlike traditional rituals that depend on gestures, objects, and repeated words without understanding, the scientific mental treatment involves the conscious and subconscious mind, comprehension of spiritual law, and deliberate action. Here you are not a passive spectator, but the active creator of your destiny. This method does not perpetuate fear, it dissolves it by revealing its illusory origin. Real case study: the Ethiopian immigrant and inner freedom. Allow me to share the story of Jan, an Ethiopian immigrant convinced he carried a curse. For years he sought relief in cleansings, offerings, and rituals, but his fear persisted. I taught him the mental treatment and encouraged him to combine his Christian faith with understanding mental law. For 21 days, Jan practiced the method. Each night before sleeping, he followed the complete sequence: relaxation, recognition, denial of harm, affirmation of good, visualization of freedom, and gratitude. He recorded the script on his phone and listened quietly, letting every word imprint his subconscious. After 3 weeks, his fear vanished, his health improved, and his mind regained peace. Jan understood that the true cleansing was mental, the reprogramming of his own faith. No external spell had power over him anymore. 21-day liberation treatment script. Here is the full script, word for word. Use it, record it, and repeat it daily for at least 21 days. Do not rush the process. Repetition is the mother of conviction. Liberation treatment. I relax deeply. I feel every part of my body loosen. My mind is at peace, receptive, open to good. I recognize any negative influence I have felt in my life. I observe it without fear. It no longer frightens me. It is only an idea. Now I deny all power to this influence. Nothing external has power over me. I cancel all consent given to fear or superstition. I am free. I affirm the truth. The divine presence dwells in me. The power of God is my shield, my protection, my strength. I am one with infinite good. I visualize my life free, full of health, joy, prosperity, and peace. I see and feel myself completely liberated from all harm. I give thanks now because this is already done. My mind, body, and environment are filled with light and protection. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Daily practice and practical suggestion. Listen to or recite this treatment every day, preferably upon waking and before sleeping. If desired, record your own voice and use it during quiet moments. The mind reprograms itself through conscious repetition and positive emotion. Remember, the true liberation ritual is not outside you, it is within. You do not need intermediaries, objects, or secret formulas. You only need your attention, understanding, faith, and consistency. Freedom is the inevitable fruit of applied knowledge. Make this treatment your habit and watch invisible chains dissolve. From now on, you are the conscious architect of your total liberation. Chapter 9. The visualization of the divine armor, permanent protection. Take a moment to perceive your own inner space. Imagine that your mind is a divine workshop, capable of forging any image, any protection, any state of consciousness. Today, I want to guide you through a practice that not only illuminates but transforms, the visualization of the divine armor. This technique, based on universal mental and spiritual laws, allows you to establish a permanent field of immunity against all negative influences in a simple, safe, and profound way. In his letter to the Ephesians 6:11-17, Paul speaks of putting on the full armor of God so that you can stand firm against the schemes of evil. Notice that the apostle does not mention material armor or external shields, but qualities of the soul: truth, righteousness, faith, peace, salvation, and the word as a sword. This is not a distant metaphor, but precise instruction for working with your subconscious mind. Visualization as a mental shield. The subconscious responds more to vivid images than to empty words. When you practice visualizing divine protection, you are not merely imagining, you are planting a new law in your subconscious. Repeating this exercise, your inner mind learns to automatically reject every negative suggestion, destructive glance, and ill-intentioned word. Just as the body generates antibodies against physical threats, the mind generates psychic and spiritual antibodies through repeated practice of the armor visualization. Step by step, creating your armor of light. Each morning, find a quiet moment. Sit or lie down, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Visualize with as much detail as possible a golden light that emerges from the center of your being and expands, covering you completely like a radiant armor. Feel its gentle weight, its warmth, its brilliance. There are no cracks. It is a perfect shield. Nothing external can penetrate it. Step 1. Begin with the head. Feel the light descending like a helmet of pure gold, protecting your thoughts from any external influence. Step 2. Move down to the chest and abdomen. Feel the light forming an impenetrable shield where nothing can harm your heart, self-esteem, or security. Step 3. Visualize the arms and legs, each limb wrapped in light, flexible yet strong, ready to act in the world without fear. Step 4. Enclose your entire body. Now imagine a transparent, crystalline sphere surrounding you. It is a protective bubble. All that is good enters. All that is harmful bounces back and dissolves. You may experiment with variations according to your affinity. Golden armor, symbol of power, prosperity, and spiritual royalty. Crystalline sphere, symbol of purity, clarity, and absolute protection. Violet transmuting flame, inspired by mystical traditions, represents the power to transform all negative energy into peace and blessing. Do not worry about perfect accuracy. What matters is conviction and repetition. The subconscious understands the language of symbols and responds with automatic protection. Real case: the executive and emotional immunity. An executive came to me worried about the toxicity of his workplace. Every meeting felt like a battle of criticism, unfair competition, and invisible tensions. He learned the technique of the divine armor and practiced it faithfully before each encounter. Within days, he noticed that negative words no longer affected him, that his mood remained stable and his energy stayed intact while others left drained or irritated. The secret was not changing others, but changing his own internal atmosphere. "I feel as if nothing can touch me," he confessed, "as if an invisible force keeps me safe and at peace." This is precisely the function of mental armor, to create emotional and spiritual immunity where there was once vulnerability. Daily practice of the armor. Morning. Spend 10 minutes visualizing your complete armor of light. Feel each part of your being protected and strengthened. Night. Spend 5 minutes before sleeping reinforcing the image. See the light enveloping you as you rest, repairing any cracks, renewing your protection for the next day. Make this practice a daily habit and notice how your reactions to people, environments, and negative news change. You will no longer be a sponge for others' negativity, but a source of peace and security for yourself and others. Key affirmation. Embed this in your mind and repeat as often as needed. I am eternally surrounded and protected by the infinite love of God. Make this affirmation your verbal shield and the visualization your mental shield. Remember, the true armor is invisible to the external eye, yet its effect is real and tangible. Each day you practice visualization. You strengthen your mental field, retrain your subconscious, and ensure immunity against all external influence. Protection is a state of consciousness, not a superstition or a material talisman. Make the divine armor your daily habit, and you will see for yourself that nothing can touch you without your permission. You are here and now invulnerable in the love that surrounds and dwells within you. Chapter 10. When others declare you cursed, neutralizing negative prophecies. Few mental challenges can feel as overwhelming as the moment when an authority figure, a priest, healer, psychic, or elder family member, pronounces a dark sentence over you. You are cursed. You will fall ill. Nothing good awaits you. These words, due to their emotional charge and the respect inspired by the speaker, seem to acquire a special force, almost a physical weight. Why does this happen? How can we deactivate their apparent power and reclaim inner peace? Let me reveal the central principle. No word from another has real power over your life, except what you give it through your belief and fear. Narrative declarations, however terrible they sound, are vibrations, mere movements of air. They only become a creative or destructive force when your mind, like fertile soil, receives them and turns them into conviction. The Bible expresses this clearly in Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. However, the tongue itself does not create or destroy. It is you who, by accepting or rejecting the word, activates its effect in your experience. The power of perceived authority. Understand well, when a negative sentence comes from someone you give authority to because of their spiritual position, tradition, or emotional bond, your subconscious lowers its defenses. Respect, reverential fear, belief in special powers, all act as keys that open the door to suggestion. Thus, the other person's words come alive only because you have authorized them deep within. In my experience, I have seen cases where simple jokes by adults became real decrees for children, and gloomy predictions from healers ruined years of happiness in vulnerable individuals. But the law is clear. Every external prophecy, negative or positive, only has effect if you accept it, fear it, or repeat it mentally. Central story: the young man and the seer's prophecy. Let me tell you the story of Andres, a young man who lived under the shadow of a prophecy. At age 16, he visited a famous local seer who assured him he would die before turning 30. That solemn phrase lodged in his mind like a burning nail. From that day on, every ache, every symptom, every minor misfortune was interpreted as a sign of his imminent end. Andres lived imprisoned by fear, avoiding commitments, postponing dreams, limiting his life for a date that existed only in his imagination. When he came to me, anxiety had exhausted him. Together we examined the origin of his belief, and I taught him the fundamental law: nothing external has power over you except what you yourself give it. Andres learned to repeat a powerful affirmation whenever the thought returned. Gradually, the prophecy lost its force. He reached age 30, healthy, free, and understanding from personal experience that only his faith in someone else's decree had kept him enslaved. The annulment decree, mentally cancelling any negative word. Now I offer you a practical tool, the annulment decree. Whenever you receive a word, prophecy, diagnosis, or negative judgment, pause, breathe deeply. Visualize the phrase as a dark cloud in front of you. Now, with conviction, say aloud or mentally, "No word spoken against me has power except what I give it, and I give it none. I cancel and annul this declaration on all levels of my mind and life. Only the truth of God is law for me. I am free, safe, and blessed." Repeat this decree every time you need it until you feel the external influence dissipate like fog under the sun. If anxiety persists, reinforce your practice with positive affirmations. I only accept words of love, blessing, and truth. Everything else bounces back and dissolves. I am the master of my destiny, protected by the infinite love of God. Remember always, other people's words are only seeds. If you do not water them with your attention, fear, or belief, they will never germinate in your life. You have the power to accept or reject any prophecy. No one, however wise, powerful, or ancient, can dictate your future. It is you, deep within, who decides which law governs your mind. Make the annulment. Decree your habitual tool, and you will see how external sentences lose all their edge. Walk with the certainty that no word spoken against you has power, except what you consciously choose to give it. That is your true freedom and your greatest protection. Chapter 11. Distinguishing real protection from superstition. Amulets versus consciousness. It is time to examine with total honesty a fundamental question. Where does your true protection come from? Is it in external objects, in rituals, in gestures repeated without reflection? Or is it like an inexhaustible spring deep within your awakened consciousness? Today we will draw a clear line between legitimate protection, which arises from a mental state, and superstition, which binds your faith to material symbols. Understanding this difference is a leap from dependency to spiritual freedom. Real protection is a state of consciousness, not an object. The human mind, in its early stages of spiritual development, tends to seek security in the visible. Amulets, medals, crucifixes, stones, ribbons, herbs, magical words. Every culture has generated its own catalogue of physical protections. There is nothing to condemn in this. The need to feel safe is legitimate. However, true protection does not come from outside. It comes from inner conviction, from the deep certainty that you are united with infinite good, and no external force can harm you when your mind is aligned with truth. An amulet by itself is a neutral object. A medal, a cross, or a stone is simply matter without inherent power. What sometimes gives them power is the faith you place in them, the emotion, hope, and mental expectation. This is why they sometimes seem to work, not because the object has magical qualities, but because you activate the resources of your subconscious. This is the placebo effect in action and the danger of superstitious dependence. The risk of transferring power to objects. The problem arises when you transfer all your security to objects and forget your inner power. Then life becomes fragile and anxious. What happens if you lose your amulet? Or if the medal breaks? What if you cannot perform the ritual exactly as you were taught? The mind, accustomed to placing faith outside itself, panics and feels unprotected, like a ship without a sail in the middle of a storm. Realization and transformation. Let me share the story of Doña Elvira, an elderly devout woman who always carried a small crucifix. For her, this object was the source of her security. When she misplaced it one morning, she fell into deep distress. She felt that without her crucifix, any harm could reach her. Then, in a moment of sincere prayer, she realized a transformative truth. Christ is not in the crucifix, but in my consciousness. Divine love protects me with or without an object. This revelation restored her peace. From that day on, the crucifix remained a cherished symbol, but no longer an indispensable amulet. The amulet as a reminder, not a source of power. We are not condemning cultural practices. For many people, a symbolic object can be a valuable reminder, an anchor for positive thought, a training wheel on the path of consciousness. What matters is to understand. The power is always within you. The object may be useful while you develop internal certainty, but it should never take the place of your direct faith in the good. I encourage you, if you still need to rely on a symbol, use it consciously, knowing that its function is to help you remember the truth, not to replace it. Each time you see the object, repeat mentally, "My true protection is my union with the divine presence. This object only reminds me of it." Exercise gradual disassembly of dependency. If you feel overly dependent on an external object, begin a gradual process of liberation. Recognize the symbolic function of the object, thank it for the support it has given you, and acknowledge that its power comes from your faith. Reduce its use gradually. If you used to carry it all day, leave it at home for a while. Observe that nothing negative happens and affirm your internal protection. Reinforce direct consciousness each time fear arises from not having the amulet. Affirm, "The divine presence is in me, here and now. Nothing external can take away this protection." Use the object only as a special reminder. When you see it, say, "Thank you for reminding me who I am," and return your attention to your inner self. In a short time, you will notice your certainty growing and the need for external supports diminishing. You will experience a new freedom, a state of confidence that depends on nothing outside yourself. Remember always, power resides in consciousness, not in symbols. Use objects while you need them, but do not chain yourself to them. The path is always inward, from superstition to certainty, from dependency to spiritual autonomy. As you progress, you will discover that true protection is permanent, because it does not depend on anything that can be lost, broken, or stolen. You are now a living temple of divine protection. Walk with that security, and all else will be merely a beautiful reminder. Chapter 12. Living free forever, maintaining your liberation. True freedom is not a fleeting lightning bolt that disappears after the storm. It is a permanent light, nourished day by day through knowledge, practice, and vigilant care of your mind. Today, at the end of this journey, I want to teach you how to live free forever, without relapses, without fear of old shadows, and with the ability to help others without absorbing their burdens. The threat of relapse, how to recognize and neutralize it. Those who have lived under negative suggestions for years may, in moments of crisis, feel the temptation to return to old beliefs. A financial difficulty, an illness, or a loss can trigger ancient thoughts. What if the curse returns? What if I lose my protection? This is natural. The human mind seeks refuge in what is familiar when the present shakes it. The key is not to avoid these doubts, but to recognize them as soon as they appear and neutralize them immediately. First signs of relapse include the return of phrases or fears you have already overcome. Nothing good lasts. Misfortune always pursues me. An anxious search for amulets, rituals, or external advice instead of turning inward. Feelings of guilt or inevitable fate when a challenge arises. When you notice these symptoms, do not blame yourself or panic. Simply acknowledge, this is an old suggestion, but it has no power. I know the truth. Daily mental hygiene routine. Just as you clean your body every day, it is essential to cleanse and renew your mind. This daily routine will keep you free. Morning affirmations. Upon waking, repeat firmly. Today is a blessed day. Nothing external can harm me. I am free, protected, and loved by infinite good. Daytime thought vigilance. Pause briefly throughout the day. Ask yourself, what am I thinking? Am I allowing any negative suggestion? If yes, repeat your protection affirmation. Evening review. Before sleep, review your day. Notice if any external thought tried to sow doubt or fear. If so, cancel it mentally. Nothing negative remains in me. I cleanse myself of all external influence. I sleep in peace, surrounded by divine presence. Action plan for moments of intense doubt. If fear becomes strong, keep this plan handy. Take several deep breaths until your body calms. Repeat the cancellation decree from the previous chapter. Visualize your armor of light reinforcing your mental field. Call a trusted person who knows this path and share your concern. Another voice can help you remember the truth when your mind is clouded. Inspiring story. 20 years of freedom. Let me tell you about Clara, a woman who freed her mind from the belief in an ancestral curse 2 decades ago. During these 20 years, Clara faced losses, illnesses, and family crises, yet she never became a slave to fear. Her secret? Consistent practice. Every day, without exception, she dedicates a few minutes to mental hygiene, stays alert to her thoughts, and helps others without letting their negativity cross into her consciousness. Dr. Morphy once told me, "My freedom is not an automatic gift. It is a garden I water every day." Her testimony confirms the biblical promise, "You will know the truth and the truth will set you free." John 8:32. Freedom is not an accident. It is the result of applied knowledge, actively sustained and defended. Helping others without absorbing their negativity. No! On your path, you will feel the desire to help family and friends. Do it, but never at the expense of your own peace. Listen, support, share the truth, but always keep your mental armor on. It is not your duty to carry another's pain, but to illuminate the path so that each person can find their own freedom. Remember, you cannot think or decide for others, but you can show them the law and accompany them with compassion. Final exercise, a closed contract with yourself. Write or repeat mentally the following commitment. Read it daily until it is engraved in your heart. Today I sign a closed contract with myself. I will never again give power to negative suggestions from others or from myself. I only accept good, truth, and divine protection as the law of my life. I commit to watch over my thoughts, cultivate my freedom, and share my light with those who need it. I am a child of the living God, eternally free, eternally protected, eternally blessed. Do this with solemnity and joy. From now on, you are the guardian of your own freedom. Final reminder. True freedom is a mental state, maintained and renewed daily. It does not depend on external circumstances, but on what you accept within. Every morning is a new opportunity to affirm your divine right, peace, and protection. Help others by example, but remain firm in your truth. You have known the law, practiced the method, and experienced liberation. Now live in that truth, and you will be free forever.